Welcome everybody for a new World Habitat Awards Network discussion. As many of you already know, World Habitat is a UK-based charity which works promoting innovative solutions to the access to adequate housing to all. And as you know, we run the World Habitat Awards together with UN Habitat, and then we work with winners to share their inspiring work with the world. So this is one of the opportunities here to learn from what some of the latest winners have been working. So today we're going to hear from 3 projects based in Asia and in Africa, as well as from Mr. Srinivasa Popuri from UN Habitat in Bangkok. If you have questions for while our presenters are speaking, you can write them in the Q&A box that you will find at the bottom of your screen. And after everyone has presented, we are going to have a second part of the webinar with questions. So you can also use this moment to raise your hand and ask a question directly or share from your own experience regarding informal settlements, which is today's topic. Today, the session is going to be chaired by my colleague Abby from World Habitat, and I let her introduce her and introduce our guests from today. Thank you.
Thanks, Pierre. Hi, everyone. So thanks for joining us today. As Pierre mentioned, this is the learning session on community participation in informal settlements, upgrading and resilience. I really encourage you all, if based on the discussions today, if you also want more information or connections, introductions and resources, to please contact us, because we really want to keep sharing such good practice all around the world. So I'm really excited to hear from our speakers today. And to hear also from Mr. Popuri. So we really appreciate him joining us from UN Habitat. So today we're going to start with a project that I've actually been lucky to work with our 2 partners on who are attending here today. And it's the 2024 Gold World Habitat Award project with our winners from the Urban Poor Consortium and Rujak, Indonesia. They've done really remarkable work organizing those who are in informal settlements to resist forced evictions, upgrade their living standards, and also restore their residency rights. So I'm going to introduce first Gugun, who's joining us as the Director of Urban Poor Consortium, and then Dian will also speak as the Director of Rujak Center for Urban Studies. So I'll let you guys go ahead and share your screens. We're really looking forward to it.
Hello, Abby. Thank you so much for the time. And also thank you for World Habitat for the award. We'll start to share the screen. Okay, because the time is very limited, so I will present very quickly. Yeah, my name is Gugun from Urban Poor Consortium from Indonesia, based in Jakarta for now. And I will share about how the sector informal movement or urban poor movement in Jakarta to change the policy in Jakarta, especially experience since 2015 until 2020, until now actually. And in Indonesia, we have a term of informal settlement we call kampung kota. This is the very unique settlement for the urban poor in Indonesia, mostly in the urban area, and we have a lot of the challenges in the kampung. First is about eviction, like in the picture that this is the eviction in Kampung Aquarium and also Kampung Kunir in 2016 and 2015. From the beginning until 2016, there are a lot of eviction in Jakarta. For example, 2015 until 2016, there are 305 for eviction in Jakarta. And also not only about the eviction, they also have a problem or challenges about lack of facilities, insecure tenure, disaster like flooding and also fire, and also lack of public services because of the government not recognize settlement, not recognize the people. They call the settlement like as a illegal settlement, and also they facing a lot of stigma. So that's why the many program from the government not exist in the kampung or informal settlement. And this is about us. So UPC not working alone. We work with another NGO also, like Rujak, Dian working, and also ASF. ASF is a group of architects, also Indonesia University, and also AKUR, also about community architect, and also about legal aid in Jakarta. So all of us is support JRMK. JRMK is Urban Poor Network of Jakarta. They are umbrella of many kampung or informal settlement, also pedicab driver and street vendor. So we work together and share the role to support urban poor movement in Jakarta. And the map is showing where is the community exists. And this is, for example, about our movement. I use two examples to kampung. First is Kampung Aquarium, and second is KKC. So what we did is three main activities. First is organizing. For example, we did the housing cooperative, and this is quite new in Indonesia about housing cooperative. We have a very limited example in Indonesia. So for example, in Kampung KKC, there are 256 members in KKC. This KKC kampung in the past is facing the threatened by eviction in 2015, and also in Kampung Aquarium evicted in 2016. So the organizing, we built a housing cooperative in each community, and then try to link it in the city level. Also advocacy, because the government concept is want to relocate many informal settlement to public rental housing, and the distance is very far from the previous location, and they lost their house, they lost their job also, they lost their life also. So in the advocacy, we try to propose the alternative concept. For example, in KKC, we propose for rumah deret. Rumah deret is upgrading on site, and in Kampung Aquarium, we propose for Kampung Susun. Kampung Susun means kampung vertical. If government concept is public rental housing, and we propose for vertical kampung, it's very different. And also for the networking, we are not work alone. We also build among the urban poor, but also with another NGO, architect, academic, lawyer. So it's across the profession. And also we use in the advocacy, for example, the picture in the middle, we use the more political electoral momentum, not to propose our agenda to the politician. It's not a part of the political party, not a part of the candidate, but we propose and make a political contract with the candidate. So when in 2017, for example, and after 2017, after we winning the election, so we working together with the Jakarta government to implement the promises that wrote on the contract. And this is the example in Kampung KKC. We can see that in the left side is 2014, 2017, left side, and then in the below is up 2017 and 2024 is before. So government want to evict, but the community concept is want to upgrade, not relocation, but renovation. So they start to upgrade by themselves, not by the government. So now the neighborhood is changing so much, very significant. It's very different with the previous situation. And this is Kampung Aquarium. Before, this is landed houses and evicted by government in 2016. And some families, around 100 families, keep stay on the location, and they start to advocate themselves and organize the resident, and they start to propose the alternative concept to make a vertical kampung. And now it's finished already. Oh, left one tower, not finished yet, but mostly it's finished, the building, so it's changed already. Now the kampung susun or kampung vertical aquarium is finished, and many families already live there. And this is some achievement. So for the example, two community aquarium is already built, 187 units. This is managed by cooperative, housing cooperative from the from the resident, not managed by the government. It's very different with another public rental housing, and this is the first time in Indonesia. And also, we stop the eviction in KKC. The eviction is cancelled. Not only for the achievement is not only so with our movement. So the achievement is not only for two communities, but also we change the spatial planning policy. More than 27 kampung is changed. Before it's about green and blue for the water and also for commercial area, but now it's changed to for the settlement. And also for a long time ago that the building that owned by the community is not acknowledged by the government. They call illegal building, but now more than 9,700 houses in 32 kampung have a building permit from the Jakarta government. And also the policy about the people participation in the development, in the planning is changing. Now the Jakarta government have a program we call CAP or Community Action Plan. They involve the people to make a planning together, and CIP's collaborative implementation program is implementation from the CAP, from the planning. They start to build the infrastructure in the kampung, because for a long time, kampung or informal settlement didn't get the budget, didn't get the program from the government because of illegal issue. But now, but now the government start to build the infrastructure in the kampung. And also we achieved our achievement is to build the housing cooperative, now at least to 22 cooperative in Jakarta. But we also have challenges because we still have a lack of knowledge of skill about housing cooperative. This is quite new for us. We still learn about that. And also housing cooperative not recognized yet by the law, but in our case, we already make a breakthrough, like Kampung Aquarium building. In the reality, we have the example. And also because
maybe having some connection issues. Let's see. I think Gugun may have cut off, but that actually may be a good time, Dian, for you to come and step in, actually, timing wise. So Dian, would you mind coming in? Are you able to?
Yes,
Would
but I
you-
have to I cannot share the screen yet because
and also we have
it has to
challenges
be
about diversity.
okay. Yeah.
All right. Let's that's a good segue, and thank you so much, Gugun, for that introduction. Dian, I'll let you continue to share your screen
Sorry,
and talk
Hedde.
more. No, don't worry. We just lost you for a second, but
Oh, yeah.
Dian's gonna come on in and finish off.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Dian Irawaty. I'm from Rujak Center for Urban Studies, also with partnering with Urban Consortium and others. I think I would just like to emphasize what Gugun already mentioned earlier. These are the strategies that has been implemented in the past, probably 15 years, starting with mass demonstration, citizen lawsuit. We also proposing alternative concept and also political contract, and then collaborating with different groups, right? And then also by creating housing cooperative, creating cooperative in the communities. Also, the achievement, as we mentioned, we've managed to collaborating with the government, managed to improve the settlements. Some kampungs already shown by Gugun. Also, the changes in the zoning, but also most importantly, the acknowledgement of urban kampungs as part of the cities. If we can, and then also, of course, we also acknowledge the effort acknowledged in the regional and then international level. Thank you for World Habitat for acknowledging this effort, and also we received award from the Innovations Award in 2023, and just this August we basically celebrating the award, and then also using that moment to basically mobilizing the issues and also inviting more people to join with the movement. And if we can reflect on that, I would say that the Jakarta housing movement practices has tried to promote the urban citizenship citizenship through advocacy for housing rights in the city. And then we can see that the choices and strategies and tactics that has been implemented by us as a collective completely depends on political opportunity structures, leadership styles, and local context. And then us as a movement have been moving between spaces that both facilitated by the government or state, what we call invited space, and a new space that created by us, by the movement through, for example, political contract, which and then these strategies should be understood in relation to the state. And also we can learn from what Gugun already shares with us that the success I think also depends with the networking that has been created and established in the past 15 years with various parties and working at various political scales. And then also we propose and implementing alternatives to eviction through what we call community design alternative housing, and then also promoting collective ownership and management of land and buildings through the housing cooperative. And I could say that the collective land and building ownership proposal could become a breakthrough because in Indonesia we have not yet the law that accommodating the land ownership through collective like housing cooperative, and we hope that with this ongoing advocacy we can produce new policies. And what is next? What we can say is scaling up. We have been working in Jakarta level, but we are now aiming on the national level. So we call it collective housing, or what we call coalitions of gotong royong. Gotong royong is basically working together, like mutual cooperation. And the background is because despite the fact that 85% of housing in Indonesia is provided by the people through self-help approach, the government's support is not yet really significant. So what we propose is there is a need to change the paradigm of land planning, institutions, and financing. And then what we propose is housing cooperative to facilitate the people-led solution. And as Gugun mentioned earlier, we're not only working in Jakarta scale, but also in national scale. We've been working in different cities across Indonesia since 2008, 2009, and we're producing solutions to problems in different cities. As you see, there's a Palu in Sulawesi, also Makassar, Kendari, these are in Sulawesi, also in Java, like Surakarta or Solo, also in Jakarta. So we consider that this is the time to also trying to influence policy in a national level. So these are the timeline. So the movement has been, progressively trying to change policies in the local level since 2009 until 2019 with, this is Gugun's place. And in 2020, we think, okay, this is a time that we're mainstreaming this gotong royong housing or collective housing in a national scale. In 2022, we organized a range of a series of workshop event to promoting gotong royong principles. And in 2023, we also conduct Indonesian Urban Dialogue, basically trying to invite different ministries to address this issue because the government program today has not yet accommodating the informal settlements in terms of housing finance. And today, currently, we are now trying to promoting project by pilot project in a national scales, hoping that 5 out of 14 kampungs that spread across Indonesia will be supported by the government in a way that addressing the land issues, the settlements, the housing, and then the cooperative. So these are the principles of the gotong royong or collective housing. We try to advocate for security of tenure, the participatory planning and design, and then most importantly, the institutionalizations and finance through housing cooperative. Gugun mentioned a few times about housing cooperative. So these are the issues that now we're trying to advocate in the national level. And these are the scheme of our proposal to the government, the security of tenure. Because all of kampungs that work with us is those who are located in informal settlements and not yet addressed by the government program. So what we propose is different scheme of solutions, either the on-site upgrading like in Gugun's kampung or reblocking in a kampung aquarium, or land sharing in Makassar, and other examples like South Distance relocation. And also,
Dian, I'm going to have to
yes,
cut you off in a minute or so. Keep.
Okay, so just like the to wrap up, I think the idea of collective housing has emerged from the ongoing practices in Indonesia of self-help housing, but yet we have not yet received any support from the government. And we believe that through collective housing issue can be solved if we work collectively while emphasizing community-led housing solutions in collaboration between housing movement and the government and other actors. And then we also trying to challenge basically state power by implementing different social spatial strategies. Basically, we do actions that engage the state through right claims, but also developing alternatives concept to dominant policies through housing cooperative and then collective ownership, etc. So we're hoping that our next step will be because we just got a new cabinet, new ministries, different political settings. So hopefully we can deal with that. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I actually really didn't want to cut you off because I found that very, very interesting. And I think hopefully when we come back to the questions, we can talk about the participatory aspect and some of those schemes you were talking about. That was fascinating. And just a quick note on this project that I think it is truly a project that shifts power. But if anyone didn't quite get it from the presentation, even though I think it was very apparent, the Indonesia winners have really managed to kind of work in so many multifaceted ways, just like how comprehensive the project is. And as you said, at so many different levels of power and ways of engaging the state. So it's a brilliant project. Thank you both for speaking to it. I'm going to move us on to our next speaker. And we're going back in time a bit to the 2020 World Habitat Bronze winner, Planète, Enfants and Développement in Cambodia. And this project supported residents in informal settlements by improving their homes, making them safer, developing community action, and also delivering family support and training. I'm really excited to also just hear how the project has developed since then. I'd like to introduce Stephanie, who's the country director for PE&D, and then Blandine as well will be joining us. So we're really excited to hear more about that project. Please go ahead and share your screen.
Thank you very much. I will let the floor to Blandine, and I'll be there in case.
Can you tell me if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So nice to meet you, to meet all of you. So my name is Blandine. I'm a project officer for HALI, the project I'm about to present you. So I arrived in Cambodia 6 months ago, and until then I'm working on this project. So HALI project is part of the NGO PE&D, Planète, Enfants et Développement, which is a French NGO founded in 1984. It's an NGO specialized in childhood, and we are working currently in 8 countries. So France, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Nepal, India, Togo, and Burkina Faso. And PE&D is working in Cambodia since 40 years. About a little bit of context for the project. So in 1975, a lot of inhabitants were removed the town of Phnom Penh was empty of its inhabitants because of the Khmer Rouge regime. And then 4 years later, in 1974, when the regime fell, the population returned to settle in the capital, but without urban development plans. So it was a little bit the chaos. And some people settle in like the previous infrastructure, and some decide to settle in the informal area. We were not, of course, intending to housing. And the year that follows, the population of Phnom Penh increased a lot. So there were like a creation of a larger number of informal settlements. For example, in 2023, the NGO STT, it's the local NGO in Cambodia, identified 191 informal settlements in Phnom Penh. These areas are very fragile because of the land situation first, with a few land titles, and there is like frequent eviction or relocation by the Cambodian government because of the speculation, proprietary speculation in the city. So the population are very decentralized and they are forced to move further and further to the periphery of the city. We can also witness a very high employment rates, very poor quality of housing. That's also have for consequences a lot of flooding and fire. They also have a very poor access to services, and there is a high prevalence of domestic violence in this kind of settlements. So PE&D decide to help and enable the children to grow in good condition. That's why we start to work in housing issues in 2016 and 2017 with the NGO Plan International. We developed two pilot projects, and from 2018 PE&D start to implement a project with an holistic vision aim at improving housing and living conditions in these settlements. So we conduct a first phase between 2018 and 2021, and a second phase until June 2024. So we just ended it, and we will start. And we already start, a third phase from 2024, and it will run until 2027. For this project, we have 4 objectives. The first one is to support the most vulnerable family in resolving their problems through psychosocial supports, and by offering also simple and affordable housing improvement solution. We also strengthen the mechanism of solidarity and advocacy in this community. We want to promote gender equality through family empowerment. And finally, we also develop an in-depth knowledge of the intervention area. The community, so for that, we do we have several community mobilization strategies. We work with the inhabitants of the intervention community and with local partners. There is many issue and benefit, as you all know, to directly work with the communities for identify their needs, also to generate a collective voice of the inhabitants, but also to legitimize the choices and the priority of our different action, and to ensure that the resident view is heard and by the local authority, and of course, finally, to ensure the sustainability of our actions. So in order to do that, we are working we are relying on the PASA methodology, which means a participatory approach for safe shelter awareness. We use this methodology since the very beginning. It's a methodology that gathers a group of community residents who volunteer to contribute to the development of their community. So how it's working, it's groups of around 15 people. They elect a leader and a co-leader in each group, and they are doing monthly meeting, operational meeting, one quarterly meeting with the district representative, and finally, we also conduct one meeting per year with all the PASA group from the different communities, so they can exchange and create a link together. In order to do all this meeting, we also open a project house to facilitate the creation of link and to conduct all the meeting. To manage this house, we have a local office coordinator who is dedicated to manage this house. And we are also, in our team, there is also a community mobilization officer. She is dedicated to engaging and organizing and empowering the community, and she has also the link with the local authority. So what is the role of the PASA groups? So they are here as a point of contact between the project team and all the members of the community, and they are here also to tell us the need and ensuring the successful implementation of activities. During the project, PE&D also have for objective to train the PASA group in different topics. For example, to map the community, to draft action plan, for example, for the community investment plans, and also to know how to speak in public and to defend their idea or their project in front of local authorities. Then I'm now going to explain you a little bit of our action, and I will explain you how the PASA group are involved in it. So for this, I will take the example of the housing repair kit. So you can see a little picture here on the right of your screen. So the housing renovation kit is a solution developed by PE&D to offer simple and easily achievable renovation solution to keep the house safe and healthy. And the kit consists mainly on redoing, for example, the roof, the wall, or the floor of the house to prevent, for example, the flooding during the rainy season. We use material that are easily removable, so the family can take them with them if they are, like, for example, relocated. For this part, as you can see, the PASA group will help us to map the safe and unsafe houses of the community. PE&D then PE&D will conduct interview with the family living in the unsafe houses and select the most vulnerable houses according to some criteria we predefine. And then we will organize a meeting with the PASA group member for the validation of the houses and the household selected. And then the construction team will conduct a feasibility study, and then we'll carry out the renovation. For the repair kit, the budget is around $500 per kit, and during the phase 2, 120 households receive a kit. About the budget, we also ask the household who benefits from the kit to contribute about 20% of the total price of the kits. So they become part of the project, and they are like stakeholder of the project and the renovation of the house. For the housing component, we also develop a new strategy called priority zone during the phase 2, because in the last community on intervention, our team discovered like very insalubrious micro area, and there are also their surrounding. And a simple renovation kit was not enough to properly renovate these houses and their surrounding. So this priority zone were also identified by the PASA groups. We work with them to select which houses to renovate and which micro project to carry out. So for the full renovation, the amount of the renovations is $3,500 for each houses. And we ask the household to contribute with 10% of the total amount. And during the phase 2, so we conduct 8 full renovation. And we also do 4 micro projects. So 1 renovation of the community center of the community. We also do the installation of 2 drainage systems, and we rebuild the LC road above this drainage systems. And finally, we construct a little walkway over a small pond. So for the housing renovation, the aim is to really help the residents to improve their living condition by themselves. That's why we try to involve them, in each state of the processes. I was talking about the contribution we ask for the renovation. So in order to find the money, we develop. There is like few possibilities. First, the household can use their own saving. Some also borrow money for a relative. But if they cannot, PE&D develop a partnership with a microfinance institution called Shamroon. And thanks to that, this enables 31 households to borrow money with a very reasonable interest rates. And if like the household is too vulnerable, we also do some exemption for around 10 households. For this specific case, the community mobilization officer organized a meeting with the PASA groups to ask them about their perception of the family situation, and also to reach collective agreement of the non-contribution of this specific household, so to avoid creating any conflict of interest inside the community. And now I will tell you a little bit about the successes and the challenges we faced during the implementation of the project. So about the successes, the collaboration with the inhabitants, local authority, and the strong commitment with the PASA group have been very crucial to building a strong link with the community, local people, and to addressing unsafe housing and taking also collective decision. The house renovation kit is a very good model of low-cost housing renovation, and we will intend to replicate this. And this kit also have encouraged the household to invest more in their home and to maintain them clean. And at the end, we can see that the living condition of this community have really improved thanks to the full renovation, house kit renovation, and the micro projects. We also face some challenges because, for example, some houses were in such a poor condition that the renovation kit exceeded the $500 budget allocated for the housing renovation kits. We also face some budget constraints that make it difficult to use high quality materials, in particular in terms of isolation. About the community mobilization, sometimes it was a little bit hard to gather all the PASA group members because they were busy due to their professional commitments. Inside the PASA group, there is a lot of women involved, but not at the leading position. And also there is not a lot of young people inside this group. And finally, for the priority zones, the strategy proved to be challenging to get all the residents to agree on a collective approach. This was probably due to an unclear land situation in the area. The people sometimes never considered themselves completely safe for relocation, so each household preferred to concentrate all these financial resources in their own property alone in order to better negotiate any departure or compensation, for example. So that's it. And then for the next step of the project, so we already started.
I'm going to have to cut you off soon. So if this could be the last slide.
Yeah, this is my last slide. I'm doing quick. So we already start the third phase. So according to the lesson learned of the previous phase, we will do some adjustment. For example, for the budget of the renovation kit, and we will also use more sustainable and technical material for the renovation. We will try for the community mobilization to involve more the women and the young people. And we will also offer to the beneficiary a whole range of services. And finally, we will also work on the replicability of the project because it's supposed to be the last phase. So we will capitalize our methods and transfer them to the local partner. We will also identify a new CSO to take over the housing construction and renovation components. And we already we know that there will be some need for this project. For example, in the city of Poipet, located nearby the border with Thailand, and in the future with the climate change, there will be also a lot of internally displaced people that might need this kind of solution. And that's it for me. I don't know if Stephanie has some information to add, but yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm really looking we'll definitely also come back to a few questions, I believe, in the question section. I just think it's really noticeable yet again how comprehensive this project was, in thinking of the housing services, but also the finances and the community engagement. And it's always great to see such a clear methodology as well. Just a really very well thought out process. So thank you for presenting on that. I'm going to move us on. I just want a quick reminder that if you do have any questions, to please use the Q&A box, and we will come back to those right at the end, because that will be handy for me just to look to. Right now, I'm going to move us on, though, back to 2024, to our World Habitat Award bronze winner. Daraja is a weather forecasting and early warning system. It was specifically for the residents of informal settlements in Kenya and Tanzania. We're lucky to have CEO Mark from Resurgence here today, and then afterwards we're going to hear from Prudensiana, from the Community Development Officer, who's a Community Development Officer at the Center for Community Initiatives in Tanzania. So, Mark, if you'd like to go ahead, we're looking forward to it.
Thank you for the nice introduction, Abigail. We created Daraja, which means bridge in Swahili, because we noticed there was a kind of a blind spot. Actually, there were two blind spots emerging across East Africa, which may also resonate with our colleagues Gugun, Dian, Stephanie and Blandine. The first blind spot was that actually East African countries were urbanizing very quickly. And people were moving off the land, quite often because the land was failing. There might be, say, 2 seasons of failed crops, or actually pastoralists would lose their livestock because of drought. So they were moving into the cities at a very high rate, and the projections are high. So, for instance, in Addis Ababa, where we're working, the projections are that the city of 10 million people will have 50 million people by 2050. So there's a huge urbanization rate, and it's driven by the failure of the land, influenced by climate change, and also often by armed conflict. There's often conflict causes migration into the cities. At the same time, we noticed that the national weather forecasters were producing weather forecasts in ways that sort of assumed that people living in cities were farming and fishing. So there was no attempt to provide weather forecasts or early warnings in any kind of appropriate way to urban dwellers and the broader kind of actors in the city system. And this was because the weather agencies had built their operating models on supporting farmers and the agriculture sector, supporting fisherfolk, the fisheries sector, and lastly, the aviation sector. And they'd kind of been overtaken by urbanization. And I think the second blind spot we noticed was that the way cities were growing involved informality, that actually a very large section of the population were living in unplanned settlements, in informal settlements, and they were marginalized. Their needs weren't being considered at all by the system, the city system, the national government, in terms of reducing risk around extreme weather events, climate hazards. And yet actually the people living in informality, they often were the city population, up to 60, 70, 80%. Often the workers, the construction workers, the cooks, the chefs, it's not as if they were locked up in the settlements. They were often sort of the lifeblood of the economy of the city. So we created Daraja to try to create a bridge, again, Swahili for bridge, between the national weather forecasters and the residents of the informal settlements. And we started off in Dar es Salaam, and it's great that I have my colleague Prudensiana with me, and in Nairobi, but the project has grown since then. Perhaps a nice way of introducing Pru and the project to you is to run this short video. So we'll do that. And then I'll hand over to Pru to talk about her work on Daraja in Dar es Salaam. So great if you could run the video, Pierre.
When you want to start a project, you need to involve all those important stakeholders, especially from the city authority, the community, because we need to have the community involvement since the beginning of the project. I think as per Daraja, in the rest, we'll keep on using the SMS from the TMA. After they broadcast the information, then we'll use the SMS to send to the community. But more to that, we'll also do the public sensitization, because we know most of the people have limited information on this. When I think about Daraja, I can say one of them is a life saving, because it saves life of the most of the vulnerable people within urban settlement.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, World Habitat, for the recognition and the award. I'm here to represent Center for Community Initiatives from Tanzania, and I'm a program officer for the Daraja project. I also work with the Resurgence. As Mark has said, I'll take you through how CCI has been working on the Daraja project on the ground, especially the urban poor communities. So as Mark has said, he has mentioned a lot of challenges that we've been facing as the city, especially Dar es Salaam, whereby we are experiencing a lot of flooding, especially when we have severe weather events, especially when it rains. So during the Daraja project, we thought of having, first of all, we wanted to hear the community perceptions, whereby we did a baseline study to understand what the community understand on the climate-related issues. So we also wanted to understand the capacity in coping with the severe weather events. So during the baseline study, we came with different information and ideas, whereby the community didn't understand the information that was provided by the Met agents. Of course, the Met agency is doing well in providing all this kind of information, but the community do not really have the knowledge and the capacity to understand, because they use a lot of technical knowledge, technical terms, and as well as most of the community, the information is being shared with this nature of the system that this community cannot access to. But also we wanted to understand the challenges that this community are facing. But more to that, we did the co-production approach, whereby we did a workshop inviting different stakeholders, whereby we invited the TMA, who are the Met agents for Tanzania, and other city actors and other related NGOs that are working on climate issues, so that we want to understand how are they dealing with all these kind of challenges, initiatives, and also we wanted to hear from them the solution to this. So at the end of the day, we thought of early weather warning updates, whereby they introduced that we use the community and the schools so that we can share the early warning weather update to improve this community's resilience. So during the implementation phase, we did a lot of trainings. We did the trainings with the city authorities. We did the training to the teachers, from the primary school teachers. We also did training with the students so that they can be also the champions in this. We also trained the community at large and the local leaders within those settlements. But we also had a lot of awareness campaigns, especially when during the early weather one that have been broadcasted, like we are going to have heavy rain. Then we always do the awareness campaign, like to remind people on what to do, what the coping measure that they should take at that particular time. But during the implementation phase, we also initiated an early warning update system, whereby we use the community itself, because we wanted the community to own the whole process. So the community, we had a group of community selected members who were trained on how to understand the information, how to interpret the information, because the community suggested that the information is too technical, so we need this information to be a bit of in a simpler language. And at the end of the day, we need to have a certain kind of examples or what to do next. So this selected group members of 4 people were trained on how to analyze the information. So the information was shared through the TMA. By the way, during this project, we also advocated for the TMA to provide us with a downscaled forecast that would go down to that particular community, because we only had the coastal region forecast. We didn't have the Dar es Salaam city forecast. So that is one of the achievements that we had. We still have the downscaled forecast for the Dar es Salaam city, whereby the community is currently using. So when we access the downscaled forecast from the TMA that they met agents, we as the NGO, we receive through email. Then it is sent via WhatsApp group, whereby we have different stakeholders in that particular group, and also we have community as well. Then the community interpret the information to what they interpret the information so that they can share it to other community members, whereby they have 30 members who receive the information through SMS, just normal phone SMS, whereby they share it to 30 people each, whereby we assume that all those 30 people share with their family members, friends, and other colleagues in neighborhoods. So we believe that the whole community will access to the information. But also, we also have the displayed board within the community, whereby it is placed in an area whereby it is centered, whereby community, most of the people who are moving in and out of that particular settlement will access to that information. So the information is from the downscaled forecast, that is 5 days forecast. But we also have the school, whereby we also train school teachers and school students. So from the school, these students have been carrying on with the awareness campaign themselves toward other students and other schools, especially the neighbor schools, but also to their parents and guardians. So during the whole school initiative, what we did was, first of all, to provide them with not like a notebook, whereby this information, after being accessed by their teachers, then it can be written on the board, so that every student within that particular school can access the information and take it back to the community, that is, maybe if it is neighbors and friends. For that case, so the Daraja project succeeded in so many ways. First of all, we were able to improve the community's understanding, especially in terms of understanding the weather-related issues, also making them ill-informed on what to do, like what are the coping measures they should take. And also, we also empower community, improve their incomes in terms of, before they never knew what to do. Like, it is raining, so what can I do? So some people were taught on how to change their business due to the nature of the weather that is current. So we also improve the income generating activities, but also there's a lot of innovative skills that were being trained. Like, we have an affordable housing, which was done by CCA per se. It wasn't in the Daraja, but that was one of the things that this community have been taught on what can they do to have those affordable housing. What in terms of saving, taking loans, etc. But also we help them in their decision making, especially when it comes to heavy rain. So what should they do for their children? Like what kind of dresses should they put on, etc. So we also prove the community resilience to climate risks, because they could now improve their houses, like renovating their houses. Some could raise their houses, some could change, like some could even relocate, and some of them could raise stairs. But more to that, some people could organize the same, like mobilize themselves and went to buy a land in an peri-urban area, though that it is they don't have enough fund for that, but they still have a land, but they're still contributing through saving groups so that they can build houses. Then they can move out of the vulnerable areas of the area that we've been working. But also for the For the government side, we have also advocate for them to adapt this system, especially the early warning system that is very as successful as a project. But also we also try to improve infrastructures, especially in those areas that we have been working with, because we have been sharing all the information. But also we have seen the river restoration and river protection that is being done by the government. Yeah, the only challenge.
Keep going. I see you're on the last slide. I was about to intersect. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm just finishing. So the only challenge that we have, of course, we have initiated the issue of affordable housing, whereby CCI as an NGO has been doing that, whereby we bought a land which was contributed by the community itself through their saving scheme. So at the end of the day, we also wanted to introduce this particular system to the community that we are working with. But the only problem that we lack is more fund for this affordable housing system, because it needs a lot of resources. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think every time I hear more and more about this project, it's a power of information project. The way that you've all created such a ripple effect of passing information on, informing people, and then empowering them through understanding and knowledge of weather forecasting and how to adapt to it. I think it's really remarkable. So thank you for speaking more to that. It was really interesting. I'm going to quickly take us on to now invite Mr. Pupuri, who is the Chief UN Habitat Multi-Country Program Officer for the Regional Office of Asia and the Pacific. And I just would like him to maybe give us a few remarks on the presentations he's just heard and to give his insight. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Greetings from Bangkok. Very warm greetings. First, let me allow to exchange my sincere thanks from Habitat and also personally from my side to the team World Habitat, Abigail, Louise, and Pierre for extending this warm invitation for me to contribute with my 2 cents for this online event. World Habitat Awards Network is our partner, so we, not only myself, but many of my staff are very glad to be part of this. They all have contributed. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, according to the accounts that our colleague, UN Special Rapporteur on the right to adequate housing, there are staggering 1.6 billion people around the world. They lack the adequate housing. Forget about basic services. And with the projection that this could actually reach to 3 billion people by 2030. And imagine among them, almost 100 million people are homeless. So for this reason, I'm quite immensely appreciative of the wonderful work of the World Habitat in bringing to the light and acknowledging the best practices in addressing some of those fundamental issues of housing and people's housing, At the same time, we are also quite grateful for the work, in fact, which should be all our work in celebrating this great success of grassroots and community-based organizations, like all of you, in championing the initiatives to improve the living conditions of slums, kampungs, informal settlements, different countries they call differently. But thank you also for giving me that opportunity to listen to those inspiring, presentations, and I really made it. Dear friends, we all know that the world is experiencing quite a global housing crisis, but many of the politicians, they downplay it, and so the media being quite silent. So as Bapa Gugun and Ibu Dian and Mark and Prudensiana, they have quite articulated so well in their presentations that much of the urban expansion takes place in the slums and in the informal settlements, because the cities are not prepared for that unprecedented population growth and also the deteriorating infrastructure. And they are not capable of absorbing all that influx of people moving and flocking to the cities. So, and moreover, the housing in most of these urban centers, especially in the developing countries in the global south, they are not affordable anymore. So because the governments let the market forces take over the housing for the real estate, because it's quite lucrative for them. So the poor settle and squat in those urban fringe areas. So now we ask ourselves, how our member states can build those billion houses? And with the current governance structures that on budget, on treasury, with poor governance that exists in most parts of the global south, how these delivery mechanisms are prepared to build these houses at scale. So, I mean, in Aceh and in Philippines, in Myanmar, in Sri Lanka, I mean, all that in Southeast Asia and South Asia, I mean, we, along with many of the partners that are very much in this room, we could assist around 400,000 families through off-budget, off-treasury within 2 years. But with on-budget, on-treasury, can you really believe that this can be done in 2 years? I really doubt. So the reason we could do it, not because we are UN, not because we are international NGOs, not because we are Red Cross movement. It is because we believed in the people to do and rebuild their own houses. So it's so important. So the question here is, can the government do that without people and without systems thinking? I really doubt. So I think all of us have that responsibility to advocate that for all the governments, it's not only about this, the rental housing, but there is a lot more that people can contribute to. So it can only be dealt by a mix of housing solutions, the social housing, the rental housing, the housing for the first-time buyers, and the fresh graduates and the workers in those all that industries that are in the fringe areas, and also by embracing the diversity, as some of our colleagues from Indonesia was mentioning, embracing the diversity in the design and the typology of homes and catering to the individual needs of those families, because they're so different depending on the custom and the religion and the faith and the culture, right? So not merely a government-led housing or community-driven housing can deliver it, but it has to be a mix of those housing solutions. So for the last 40 years, the UN Habitat has been involved in empowering those communities across Asia and the Pacific, and of course also in Arab region and also in African region. Not so much in Africa, we are just evolving there to address these housing and infrastructure challenges. Especially in this region, we have been kind of practicing and implementing a people-centered housing development, and we call it as people's process. And that is throughout the Asia Pacific, and now slowly it is spreading into Africa by many of you actually. So using this philosophy of people's process, many of the member states have uplifted a lot of people out of poverty. They have formalized informal settlements. They have given addresses to those unaddressed with the formal street addressing. And this process also inspired, as colleagues from Indonesia was mentioning, on Kampung Improvement Program. So in 90s, we designed the co-build program. With the World Bank, they adopted this whole philosophy and they designed the community-driven development methodology, and it's called Kacamatan Development Program. And then the Urban Poverty Reduction Program. And then it moved to Afghanistan by taking those lessons from Indonesia and Sri Lanka. Then they designed the National Solidarity Program and also the Citizen Charters Program. So we were very fortunate as UN Habitat to be part of that, contributors in designing this program. And all this started off with the Million Housing Program of Sri Lanka, so that we fondly remember. And this is exactly the work of many of the NGOs and community-based organizations in Asia Pacific, and most notably the Slum Dwellers International, and also embraced by ACHR. So the fundamental principle is very simple: trust the people and make them owners of the process, not only as the beneficiaries, not as objects that they are receiving the sympathy or donation of others. So because they know better what they want, and they form groups and cooperatives, as Indonesian based organizations have just explained. and they come up with so much of ingenious knowledge and self-help mechanisms to cope up and take that recovery and reconstruction and development of their neighborhoods into their own hands. So in the process of last 3 decades, we also got several lessons. Many of our colleagues have burned their hands in the sense that they wasted a lot of money. At the same time, many of the projects have prolonged just because they did not listen to some of these basic fundamentals. So, and there are 3 important lessons that we learned: that we should never build prototypes or models and tell everyone that they should build the same model of the house. This is the fundamental. Do not ever build prototypes. Do not prescribe solutions for people. Let the people be part of the designing of the solutions for themselves. Second, identifying the right families that deserve and giving them the right package, especially if there is a crisis or a disaster. So this is so fundamental that the perception of a damaged house by people, by the engineers, is very different to the perception of or the reality of the house owners who considered themselves that they have almost destroyed house. So it's very important that we make these programs quite community driven. And the third one is, do not ever promise the number of houses that you build, but assure them that you are going to handhold, you are going to bring hope and provide financial and technical assistance to rebuild their own houses and their lives. So let me share that it all started, I think, way back in 80s, and I think Mark may be knowing, and some of you who have graduated from UCL and DPU must be knowing. So it all started with one question: how can you build 1 million houses in a year? This is the question asked by President Premadasa in 80s to their officers. And the response from one of their officers that passed away, Sushilo, was that you can only build 1 million houses in a year, provided you let people rebuild their own houses. So this is so fundamental. So ever since, we have embraced that philosophy, and many of us, and I myself was part of it, we got inspired, and we started advocating this in all our programs, not only in Habitat, but also in the across UN family. So we realized that such is a tall order to build so many houses. And this is only possible because if we can make them owners of the process, if we make the people as the owners of the process, not the UN, not the NGO, not the donor. And if you can make them as the decision makers, and if you can design a house based on their family needs, and let them design, let them give those insights to your community architects or barefoot architects, and then if you can empower them to build their own houses as self-respect, reinforcing an element of pride is involved in it. That's so it's the most important factor. But that when people rebuild their own houses, they should feel that they are built by themselves, not that someone else has built it and given the key. And be mindful that many of them can only build a house once in lifetime. So observing those lessons, we know there are a few examples that I could quote. Given I have some more time, but let me conclude. So we are here today, basically in sharing, our congratulations to those exceptional award recipients from Cambodia, Indonesia, Kenya, and other places whom I greatly inspired by their presentations. And let us all remember that together we have come a long way, learning from those lessons of the past. And I'm sure that there will be many more stories to share from all of you over the years ahead to come. So finally, those volunteers and young architects in this room, on this webinar, listening, I suggest that you try to explore the following 3 or 4 books that many of us got inspired. One is by Housing by the People. It's John F.C. Turner's. At the same time, he also wrote an excellent book called Freedom to Build. These are the 2 books that many of us got inspired, so I strongly recommend all of you to read that. And then is the Sri Lanka Million Housing Program. So this is There's a wonderful program that every one of us should embrace the principles of it. And finally, of course, all your work and some of our work on the people's process. So let me express my sincere gratitude to all the World Habitat colleagues for welcoming me and to share these remarks on behalf of UN Habitat. And I think this is going to foster the spirit of our partnerships, and it is quite vital for both of our work. So, and all the presentations that were made just now, it reminded me of my own work a couple of decades back, working with those slums and some of those disadvantages. I'm very glad to cherish those moments of solidarity, right? So finally, let me also warmly welcome some of you, if not all of you, to the World Urban Forum 12 at Cairo, Egypt. That's going to happen from 4th to 8th November 2024. So 2 more weeks to go. So where we can continue these discussions. And as you know, our ED, Anna Claudia Rosbach, is one among you who worked all her life for slum dwellers by becoming the voice of those voiceless. So with that, please allow me to conclude my remarks, sharing thanks to World Habitat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I found that a very inspiring and encouraging set of remarks, and really reminding us just how much people can contribute and how much their agency does matter in building their own home. So just thank you very much for those remarks, and a great plug for the World Urban Forum as well in Cairo. We're very sure there'll be very interesting discussions. I'm going to now open the floor to wider discussion. I see, so just to remind you that you can either raise your hand in the audience and my colleague Pierre will allow you to speak. And then I'm also going to look to the question and answer box as well. I see there are a couple in there which I will ask. But first, I see that Arthur has raised his hand, so I want to give him the opportunity to ask his question. Please feel free to go ahead. Maybe I move on. Arthur, are you there? Okay, let me go to the question and answer box first then, and we can see if he's able to join us and ask that question. So one of the questions that I have in this box is from Basarat, and it's a question on microfinance and renovations. I want to clarify if the Shamrouen Microfinance is a private company or is supported by the government. Is there an appetite by private microfinance orgs to fund renovations? Is there any government support for these organizations? And that's obviously to Blandine and Stephanie.
You want me to answer directly?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay. So thank you very much for the question. I think it's about our project with Shamrouen, which is a private organization. It used to be a NGO previously, but the status has changed some years ago, and so it's a for-profit company. But they also have a branch which is dedicated to social. Let's say social programs or social population. So that means they give us and the inhabitants behind us specific conditions, which are essentially the fact that they don't need any caution. Most of the time the microfinance institute, they would ask for a bank statement, or they would ask for a title of property, and the people we work with don't have that. So the interest to work with this kind of microfinance institute is that they would provide specific conditions, better conditions to the inhabitants. There is no organization in Cambodia. I mean, they are all for profit, except, there are some tiny initiatives, but it's linked with specific projects. But people working with a large number of clients are all for profit, and there is a huge, massive issue in Cambodia about that, because people, I think Blandine put that on a slide. The level of indebtedness in Cambodia is the highest in the world. And that means that the people face a lot of difficulties to reimburse their debt, and they would take another loan to reimburse the first one and so on. So it's really something difficult to manage. The government recently announced that they would organize a bit more this sector, and they would try to assess the level of let's say a level of loyalty or honesty of the different IMF, to select some of them only, to give some authorization to work for some of them only. So there is a big work going on in Cambodia, because everybody is well aware of the problem. But a lot of people, as you can guess, have also interest in that, because it makes a lot of money for some of them. So it's going on, and in between, the projects are trying to find some solutions for themselves. And we, I mean, in PE&D, we choose to work with a chaperone, which is a good one, in the sense that they don't take shark loans, and also they pay attention on the situation of the families before they take a loan. And third, they don't ask for a title of property or any question of, difficult conditions to have before. So I hope it's clearer. I hope I answered the question.
No, definitely. And also, if Basra has any more follow-ups, please feel free to use the chat or raise your hand. I have another question as well from Andy, and this is about, it's for Daraja, and it's about the potential for the lessons learned in this project seem just so transferable to other parts of the world, not just Africa. And he's curious about what plans Resurgence have to expand that model, and what we or others can do to help.
Thank you. That's a great question. And just on the learnings, there are quite a large number of case studies that have been undertaken on Daraja, and we've been very open to sharing lessons. And we've tended to share those lessons with the big early warning initiatives coming out of the UN, which sort of have a tendency to be somewhat technically led and top down. And we think that Daraja, through this bottom-up approach that connects with the formal system, is something of an antidote, something of a countermeasure to this tendency for top-down technical approaches, which I think is something that Srinivasa from UN Habitat implicitly referred to when he said that actually an engineer will never identify the right house to rebuild, right? Yes, the lessons are available. The methodology is a broad but consistent methodology that has flexibility within it to the local context. I think that Prudensiana and her organization CCI have interpreted it and found local priorities and local opportunities, such as working with schools, for instance. But then there is a core methodology, and we have been, I think, successful in scaling it out to other cities in East Africa, including now secondary cities such as Mombasa in Kenya, and in other contexts such as countries that are in conflict, including Sudan, where we now have a national program for Daraja that still has that consistent co-design methodology with communities living in informality. How could you help us? I think there's two areas. One is if you are working with communities that are vulnerable, that are living in informality, whether that's urban or rural, because not all informality is urban. Yeah, we're interested in sharing our tools and methodologies with you. And we're also keen to share what we have done in terms of creating a model that measures the avoided loss and damage, the avoided impact on houses, the impacts of floods, or heat waves through the preparedness? What has been avoided in terms of financial loss or property damage or health impact? So we're creating a model around that, and I think partnering with you to actually further develop the model so we can have evidence that this is helping people lose less money, avoid damage to their homes and dwellings, and protect their health. That model is very important, we think, to attract further funding from donors. I'm just wondering whether, Pru, you've got any other comments to that great question around sharing lessons learned, and how can we scale up Daraja? Yes.
I think Mark said it all, and I think you as Resurgence have done a lot of initiatives, especially taking it to East Africa. Now we are in Sudan, Ethiopia, which is working a very nice like system. But for us as a Tanzanian team, we are still working on how to embed all these the impacts or success that we have on the Daraja project towards the whole country, like the whole Tanzanian, because this is not only Dar es Salaam that is being affected, also the other areas within within the country are also affected. So we are also working very hard to involve the city authorities and the ministers and other politicians, so that we can make sure that all these approaches or whatever that has been done through the Daraja project is also being embedded in the government policies, also the government kind of system, especially the school curriculum and syllabus, so that this can be part of the teaching and training within these schools in Tanzania. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also think, when we get a lot of different housing projects every year with the awards, and one of the challenges they speak to is the idea of showing the evidence of what hasn't been damaged yet, of what the kind of potential cost can be if something is not protected. So I think collecting that evidence is very, very important, and I'll be curious to see how that develops. Now we have a few more messages in the chat, and I actually hope I can get to all these questions. But one of them was about talking, and I think this would be good in terms of thinking about transfer. There are so many regional networks, and actually Mr. Pupuri kind of spoke to a few of them, the Slum Dwellers International, Asian Coalition for Housing Rights. And how do you think people, and this is a conversation to all the panelists, how do we think we can leverage those regional networks to transfer these models? What is it that kind of we can use within those networks to help transfer and scale? I'd just be curious to hear any of your thoughts on it. And then I have another question on waste management that I'll get to after. Dian, go ahead.
Hi, Abby. Yes, maybe I can share from the perspective of ICHR, because both UPC and Rujak has been working, has been part of the network, and then we've been collaborating with other movements in different cities across Southeast Asia, as well across Asia, and then it actually has been very helpful to be working within the network, and then therefore because we have the opportunities to work together, and then to implement like one particular approach. For example, like currently Rujak, UPC, and other cities is part of the collective housing projects, means that trying to promoting this collective housing through cooperative housing. So the idea of, it's not necessarily transferring, but kind of like inspiring each other's and then learning from each other's experience, because transfer could be very also dangerous terminology, because different contexts definitely will give different response. So I think transfer, if we understood transferring through the lens of, okay, we can learn from other experience and try to see through our context, I think that will be useful. And then I think to be within the network means that you also get support from others. For example, like if we agree to, for example, Daraja wants to share the experience to other countries across the region, then by collaborating each of these movement within different countries can learn and can support each other in terms of knowledge transfers, even resource persons, and hopefully also funding in terms of how to fund the project as a collective or looking for funding as a collective. I think that would be very useful, and that has been worked in Asian Policy for Housing Network. Also, I think the most important thing is that we have the freedom to try new things and then get support from the region, and that's what's in.
Thank you. Unless anyone else has anything else to say, I really want to quickly get to this waste management question. And it's, sorry, let me find it in the chat. Here we go. It's how is Daraja seeking to address the issues of waste management, which exacerbate the resilience of housing in informal sector on top of WCIS?
Thank you. That's a great question. I'll let Prudensiana provide the second half of the answer from a local perspective. From the Resurgence perspective, Daraja is not working directly on waste management. Daraja remains an information and preparedness-based initiative, weather information, forecasts, early warning, community and city system preparedness. However, there's a connection with waste management in that we hope to better influence the decision-making of the formal waste management system where it exists, but often it doesn't exist, right, in the informal settlements. But that's why working with the city authorities is important. And secondly, we hope and we do influence at the informal settlements level waste collection. In Nairobi, there are regular rubbish clearances of drains, of canals in advance of storm and heavy rain warnings. So waste collection is one of the key kind of activities that are often triggered by either seasonal forecasts or short-term early warnings of heavy rains. So Daraja influences actions around waste collection from either the formal or the informal system, but is not working directly on improving those systems. But I'll hand over to Pru because I think she can provide the local experience and perspective on this for Dar es Salaam.
Okay, thank you, Samuel, for the very good question. Of course, waste management is also one of the impact to one of the aspects that leads to flooding, especially in Dar es Salaam. So we, as a community NGO that we're working with the community, we have been trying, we've been working with the community to think of a solution whereby we had a system where we had a first team, which is led by the community member, that is the federation. We have this Tanzania for the Urban Poor Federation team, whereby they initiated a kind of system of collective system whereby they collect waste and they do like recycling within their settlement. So this has been scaled to other parts of the city, though we have a lot of challenges. I know the issues of fund, etc. But we also initiated in this kind of a project, we also started a research regarding the waste management system within Dar es Salaam. And we found a lot of challenges that is facing the whole city, not only the settlement that we have been working with. So we have worked with the government to think of what are we going to do on these kind of challenges, because this is one of the most aspects that leads to flooding within the reserve. So some of the idea that the government came out with, they started cleaning of course the community initiated the cleaning campaigns within the drainage and the river that they live along, especially those who live along these rivers. But also they started having general cleaning campaigning by the government, whereby they provide the vehicles and the waste collection trucks. But also we are still in the discussion with the government on how are we going to make sure that even these communities are able to pay for the service, because that is one of the challenge, because they are not able to pay for the service. That is why they decide to do the poor waste disposal, especially along the rivers and the drainage. I think that's enough.
Thank you so much. I really wanted to get to that question because I thought it would be quite interesting to hear your perspective.
So thank you very much. It was the last webinar of our series for this year, and we're looking forward to also see you next year. So stay tuned, and thank you so much for the great work. Bye-bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
You.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good rest of your
Dian.
day.